Alright, good morning people. Just a quick video to show you how to do a few little skills in 2D design. Now this one's particularly pertinent to the picture frame project. So as you may or may not already be aware, you are making your frame out of several materials and the front is going to be made out of acrylic. And we can customize that acrylic so it's not just a boring kind of plain piece of plastic. We can actually customize it so we can laser cut some images just to make it a bit more personal to you. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. First of all, on your teams, I'm going to put a picture frame template on there that you can download, which means if you don't want to do this first bit of this video, you can skip it and just download that picture frame template. You need to download it and then save it into your own OneDrive so you can edit it into design. But for the purposes of this video, I'm actually going to start right from the beginning and show you how I'd go about doing that. So here we are, fresh design, and I'm going to go to setup up here, setup, drawing, layout. If I click on setup, drawing, layout, I get this screen here, this option box. Now what I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to click on user defined. And if I click on user defined, I get some options. Now we can leave these, most of these alone. So the material size is kind of like the overall size of the piece of paper, if you like. We don't need to worry about offset. It's the design guide I'm worried about. The design guide's really useful, because it means if we're drawing things that need to be a particular size, we can set up a guide so that we can really quickly and easily see what it should look like or how big it should be. So what we're going to do is the X value here. So X, design guide on the X axis, we're going to click on that. That's going to type in 150. You don't need to type millimeters. And then the next one, I'm going to type in, on the Y axis, is going to be 200. And then I'm going to press OK. So I went into this, I did user defined, design guide 150 and 200. Press OK. Now you can see this hashed area here, and that is 150 wide by 200 tall, if you like. Now, by default, you won't have gridlock set up, so you need to just click on gridlock up here on the right. That means when I draw a box in here now, it will snap to these dots, so I won't make any mistakes. So I'm going to go to my box on the left, click, drag it down to the other corner, click, OK, and then straight back up to select up here, click on that. Now I've got my 150 by 200 box, so that is the size of my picture frame, effectively. Now I can make some images in here, and the laser cutter will laser cut them out, and that's what the plastic will look like, and that's great. But the problem is we have to have a picture in here as well, so we don't necessarily want laser cutting all over the front of it, because it might obscure the photograph that sits behind. So if you remember, our pine pieces that make up the outside of the frame are 30 millimeters wide. So what I need to do is put a box inside this to make myself a guide. So I'm going to go back up to the box, and this can be a bit tricky, but if you count in 3 and count down 3, so you see where my cursor is, I've counted in 3 and down 3, click, and I do the same the opposite corner, so in 3, up 3, because these are all 10 millimeters apart, and click. So now what I have is this area here around the outside. That is approximately, depending on how well you've made your picture frame, that's approximately where your pine will be. So that's a good area to put in some customization. Okay, so we can put some things in there that you can laser cut. The laser cut can etch those on, and that'll look really, really good. And then we've got a little area in the center that has been left largely unobscured, hopefully, so that we can see the photograph on the real frame when it's made. So before you start anything else, so just double check. So from these lines to the distance between the lines basically should be 1, 2, 3 all the way around. Okay, and if that's the correct distance, then you've done everything perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this into the middle to make it a little bit easier to see. So I've got my select tool here. I'll just do that and then click on the center. I've still got gridlock on, and I'm just going to pop it there. You can still see the design guide, but that's fine. It doesn't really make any difference. It's not actually active. It's just there visually for us. So what I'm going to do now is show you the best way of getting some images in there. Now you can come up with your own characters, logos, whatever you want to do to put them in, and I won't show you that in the video because that's kind of up to you how you'd like to do that. What I want to show you is how we take images from the internet and we convert them so that they can be understood by the laser cutter. Now you need to remember that the laser cutter is not it's not a smart machine. It won't see an image and think, oh, that's a tree, for example. I'm going to I'll copy that on. It doesn't work like that. Okay. What we need to do is give it a set of instructions, and with laser cutter, it's a plotter effectively. It follows a set of coordinates, similar to if you went orienteering around a school. I want you to go from this point to this point to this point to this point, and that would dictate the shape of the trail you were walking or running around, if that makes sense. So the best way to do this, I'm going to go into, you won't be able to see this, but I'm just going to go into Google Images, and I've already Googled tree silhouette. And I want to show you a couple of different ways of doing it. So the first one I'm going to look at, now when you go into Google Images, actually click on the image before you try to copy it. So I'm going to copy image, and I'm going to paste it straight in here. Okay, there it is. Now it just randomly placed it there. So what I need to do is I need to find, it's very slow, my computer, apologies. I need to find the center of this. There it is. And I need to shrink this down a bit so it fits. So hopefully remember, if I'm going to shrink this down, I need to make sure that I press and hold shift, that's the upward arrow key, while I'm resizing it. Because if I don't, it could go quite badly wrong. So pressing shift just basically means that it gets wider at the same rate as it gets shorter, if that makes sense. Let's just pop that there. So that's quite a good one. That will work. I'm going to leave that there for now. Now it's still too big. Obviously, I'd need to make it smaller, but for the purposes of this video and so you can see what I'm doing, I'll leave it that size. So I've just copied and pasted that straight from the internet, and you can see, because you can't see the grids behind it, the little dots. That's a solid white background. That's what we want. Okay, and that's fine. Now I'm going to go back into Google Images. I'm going to get something slightly more complicated. This should be a good example. It's worth mentioning here, when you get a silhouette image, and it's better if it's a silhouette image from the internet, you need to make sure that it has a solid white background. Sometimes you go on to a picture and it has like this checked white and grey background. That means the background's see-through. That's not actually suitable for what we want to do. So try and avoid those. Try and find ones that have a solid white background like this one does. Let's just shrink that down to the size we want. Okay, we've got our two trees here. Wonderful. Now what I'm going to do next is something called a vectorize. So what I'm basically doing is I'm going to turn them into a set of coordinates. At the minute they're an image, I'm going to convert that image into a set of coordinates, and this is how I do that. So once our images are there, or it doesn't matter how many different ones you want to do. Let's pop this up slightly. This one here on the left, if you hover over it, it looks like it basically showing a picture to a block. This is called Vectorize. So if you click on Vectorize, and then you click on the image, and what it does is it spends a few seconds analysing the image. Okay, now here it is. Now what I need to do here, it's quite important, is I need to turn it into monochrome. And what you'll notice is that white background now disappeared. Okay, so I went to Vectorize, clicked on it, monochrome up here, pressed OK. Press OK again. And what you'll notice is once it completes it, look, the dots have reappeared behind it. So that image is now converted into a different type of image, basically. But it's something that the laser cutter would understand. But we've still got one more thing to do, because at the minute that is a solid block, and that's no good for us. What we want is a line, basically. So last thing to do, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go up to fill up here at the top. So I've clicked on my image using select. So select, click on the image, click on fill, and simply click on no fill. And that will take all that filling out of the tree. Press OK. There you go. So now we have something that the laser cutter will understand, and the laser cutter will go along here and it will follow this line and cut into the plastic. It could cut all the way through, or we can set it to cut in a little bit, but it's important that we do those stages. Okay, so that is now ready to be resized with my shift key. When you're doing this, actually, it's probably worth turning off gridlock. Make sure gridlock and step lock are turned off, purely because you need to make quite fine adjustments to the size potentially, and it'll allow you to do that better. So I can see that a little bit too big still. I'm just going to make it a touch smaller, and I can place that there. So that means the laser cutter now will come along and just etch that in. So that's great. Okay, let's look at this other example. So this one I've picked because it's slightly more complicated. There's a lot going on. I'm going to zoom in on it so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. There is a lot of detail in here. So let's see what happens when I try to vectorize it. So vectorize here on the left. Click. It's analyzing it. Hopefully you remember that we're going up to monochrome. Okay, no, so far so good. Okay. Press OK again. Okay, good. So that's worked. It has actually worked absolutely fine. So I'm going to click on it and go to fill, no fill. But this is where we might have an issue, because you need to understand the limitations of the laser cutter. If we compare this, well, this one here on the left, that's a relatively simple shape. One line that goes around the edge, and that was a very crooked line, but the laser cutter will have no problem with that. And then there's a couple of little bits in here, that's absolutely fine. Something like this, the laser cutter may struggle with, because it's very, very, very dense. And if I make it even smaller, so that I can fit it onto my picture frame, you see that problem only gets worse, and that will look a bit of a state when it's laser cut. It won't look much like a tree by the time it's finished. Okay, so I'm going to click on that and press delete. I don't want it. One or two issues that can occur. So if you put an image in that it's a silhouette, but it's not necessarily got a white background. So, for example, it could be a kind of a PNG image, but it's got a hashed background, and that just means that it's a see-through background. What can happen is when you go to vectorize it, the program doesn't understand what it is. Okay, and I'm trying to find one at the minute, but it won't show me at the minute, but that's okay. But the program might understand that when you go to vectorize it and press monochrome, you'll end up with, rather than seeing the tree, you'd end up with just a solid block, a solid black block, and that's no good to you. Okay, so have a go with that, folks. You can do as many designs as you like around here. Let's do something else. Let's go for, I don't know. Let's go for a flower. Stay with a nature theme. Now, if I type in flower, I will get lots of complicated images. So it's when you type something in, so type what you want, okay, and then always type in silhouette afterwards. Don't worry about spelling silhouette. It's SILHOUETTE. But if you just type in SIL, it will usually autofill silhouette for you. So I'm going to find a nice image. This one will do. Right, so I found one actually that's got a background that looks like a little checkerboard, which is not what we want. So I'm going to show you what happens. So I found that checkerboard background. I'm going to paste it in here. Oh, look, that's often what happens. So it's just a big black amorphous blob, and it's no good to us. So if you copy and paste something in and it does that, that's because it was the wrong type of image you took from the internet. So find one that's got a solid white background. That's the only way it's going to work. And you can't often tell just from the previews on Google Images. You actually have to sort of click on the image to see if that is going to be a solid white background. I've just found one with a solid white background, so I'm going to copy that, paste it in. That's it, and now I've pasted it. That's fine. Okay, and I'm going to again show you. Well, I'm going to show you as well what happens if you don't use the Shift key to resize an image. So I'm going to resize this without using the Shift key. And the problem is, now this is an over exaggeration, but you can see that it's kind of skewed it. That's no good. So Control Z takes me back. No, but I did two things, so I have to paste that in again. So this time I'm going to press the Shift key and hold it while I'm resizing it, and you see it keeps it proportional. So now it looks like it did before, just smaller. So let's just run through that again for you, zoom in a little bit. So I've got my image in there, vectorize here on the left, click, monochrome, okie dokie, up to the select arrow here, fill, no fill, okay, bosh, there it is. Okay, and then I can resize it appropriately, and you can do as many as you like out of these around the edge. It's entirely up to you. It's up to you how you do it. You can do custom ones, easiest ones to take from the internet. You can do your own. You can set your own level of challenge on that, no problem at all. Okay, so hopefully that helped, and let's see how you get on with that. And whatever you do, guys, make sure you keep saving your work. 2D design does not automatically save your work, so you must make sure you go up to File, Save As, and I suggest you do this nearer the start of what you're doing, because there's nothing more frustrating than losing your work right at the end when you spent all lesson on it. And I suggest you do save it into your OneDrive. I haven't got OneDrive set up on my Winbook. Not like that anyway, but try to set it save it into your OneDrive, and then just make sure you keep saving occasionally here, because it doesn't save automatically, guys. Okay. You can also just use it in the documents. You can save it into the documents of your own Winbook. That's fine, as long as you don't obviously delete it off your documents. Okay, good. Right then, folks. Thanks for watching, and I hope you're going well with it.